is so important because everything that's good in my life, I'm 45 years old, and everything that's good in my life has come because of my ability to communicate well, to communicate effectively. And I'm not the best communicator, but I've worked at it. I've worked at it my whole life. And it's resulted in a million good things that have happened for me. And so when I speak to a group like you, when I speak to someone like you who's on this call, who's on this webinar of sorts, I think, gosh, you're right at the beginning. You're just starting right now, and you have your whole future in front of you. And there's so many good things that can come from what you're working on. So I want you to take a second and think about your favorite TV show or your favorite movie. It doesn't matter if it's a TV show or a movie. And think about your favorite character on that TV show or on that movie. It could be Star Wars. It could be anything. It doesn't matter to me what the TV show is. But think about the character that you like the most. There's a good chance that that character was a great communicator. Right? He or she probably said all the right things at all the right times. They were effective communicators. That's one of the reasons probably why you like that character. Think about your school. Which teacher do you like the best? There's probably one teacher that you like better than the other teachers. Why do you like that one teacher better? I don't know the answer, but there's a good chance that it's because that teacher is a great communicator. And this goes, you can think about YouTube. I'm sure you watch YouTube videos. I watch tons of YouTube videos. So I'm sure you have people that you follow, like Vsauce, or I mean, there's so many different YouTubers that I follow. Why do you like the YouTubers that you like? It's because they're great communicators. This is the one thing that all the leaders in our whole society have in common. That's why they're leaders. That's why they became successful. They became successful because they were great communicators. And that's the one thing we all have in common in the whole world. It doesn't matter if you become an engineer, or if you become a firefighter, or if you work in a hotel, or if you drive a taxi. The one thing we all have in common is that we all have to communicate with each other. And so if you become a great communicator, it's going to set you apart from all the other people. In many cases, and especially today when we spend so much time looking at our phones. We all look at our phones and on our digital devices. People are communicating one-on-one less than they have in a long time, which means that there's even a larger shortage of good communicators. So I want to encourage you to keep honing this craft. This craft can guide your whole life. It can guide your whole life. And so I want to tell you just briefly about my own journey. I'll tell you what I do. Let me tell you what I do, because I didn't even know that my career existed when I was your age. I didn't know. I had no idea that this existed. So let me tell you what it is that I do. So every company and organization and even government departments, think about your mom and your dad. Where do your mom and your dad work? Well, they work probably for a company or for maybe a government department of some kind, but they have an employer. They work for somebody. And that company has most likely a meeting every year. And many times they have these meetings in incredible places. Like I met Mike in Washington, D.C., which is that's the capital of our country in the United States, is Washington, D.C. Well, I went to a conference in Washington, D.C. That's where I met Mike from this program. So they have these conferences, and these conferences hire speakers, people like me. People there, and there's more speakers than you would even imagine possible. There's thousands of speakers that do what I do. But these companies want someone to come in and to inspire the audience and to tell them something they don't know, or maybe a perspective they haven't heard before, and provide some sort of education. And so I get to travel all over the world. I'm very, very lucky to do what I do, because these conferences, many times they're in Europe, or they might be in Asia, or they might be in some tropical island, or they might be in Washington, D.C., or San Francisco, or New York, or Miami. And so I get to travel to these places and help these companies and all the employees to think bigger and to be inspired and have new ideas. And it's a fantastic career. And why is that career even possible? Well, it's possible because most people aren't comfortable giving speeches, doing exactly what you're learning. Exactly what you're learning is to give a speech. Most people don't like doing it. Maybe you don't like doing it. Maybe it's hard for you. Maybe you get nervous. You get a little bit scared. I do too. In fact, I get nervous every single time I speak. When I have to stand up in front of a group of people, every time when I stand up on that stage, I get nervous. And maybe you've given a speech too, maybe to your class or maybe in some other setting where you had to give a speech. And when you stood up, did you feel those butterflies in your stomach? Like you felt nervous, you didn't know, maybe you almost forgot what you were going to say? That happens to me every time. But these are things that you can learn and you can get better at it. All it takes is practice. The more you do it, the more you get accustomed to it and you get used to it. And if you think about it, like I said at the beginning, all the people, think about the business leaders and the government officials, and right now we have the election going on in the United States, and so we see these people having debates on TV and yelling and screaming at each other and saying all the stupid things that they're saying. Well, the bottom line is that the person who's going to win is probably the person who communicates the best. Think about your teachers and your professors, and even think about in the world, every company has salespeople. Well, those salespeople are making presentations. They're educating people about the products that they sell. So it's a really, what you're doing is good. And what you're learning is valuable, and it can make a huge impact on your life. So for me, I just started speaking everywhere I could. So imagine your class. You could go to school. You could say, I want to give a speech on something. You'd be amazed how many, maybe you go to a church and there's a youth group and you could say, I want to give a speech there. Well, that's what I did. I went everywhere I could and said, I want to give a speech. I want to give a speech. I want to give a speech. I always wanted to be in a situation where I could stand in front of people and deliver a message. I wanted to do this when I was 12 years old, just probably a similar age to what you are right now. So you can start right now and start getting the practice. And I got nervous. Like I told you, I get nervous every single time I speak. But I also knew I wanted to do it. I knew that I wanted to do it ever since I was 10 years old or 12 years old. So ask yourself, is this what you want to do? Do you want to do this? Do you want to be a speaker? Do you like it? Is it exciting for you to be in front of a group and delivering a message? If it is, I encourage you to keep going, because for me, it just slowly but surely, I spoke in different groups, people heard about me, I did a good job, or I tried to do a good job. And so everyone, over a period of time, people told each other and my name got passed along, and now I do it for a living. It's the only thing that I do is to go around and to deliver speeches at company events and business events. Events that you might find are boring, but they're fun when you're an adult. And when you're an adult, you might enjoy them too. So I just want to give you 3 things, just 3 little tips to be a better speaker yourself. And they're things you've probably heard many times before, but this is my first chance to speak to you. So I'm going to give them to you. It's my first time. And the first one is structure. When you give a speech, when you want to communicate an idea, it's really useful to have structure, like to say maybe 3 things. I'm going to tell you this, this, and this. Having that structure, you're making it very simple so that the person who's listening to you can be like, okay, I get it. I'm going to hear 3 things, and they're ready for it, right? So when you lay it out and it could be 2, it could be 4, it doesn't matter how many it is, but to say, look, I'm going to tell you 3 things that I want you to think about. That makes it easy for the person listening to see what's going to come and to hear what you're going to say and understand what you're going to say. And the second thing that I want to tell you is that listening is the most important part. And when you speak, see, there's 2 different ways to do it. Let's say we're in a conversation. Let's say it's you and me and we're in a conversation. Well, in that case, we're going back and forth in our conversation. So I say something, and then you say something, and I listen, and then you stop, and then I say something again, and you listen, and then I stop, and then we go back and forth where I'm listening to what you say and you're listening to what I say. And that back and forth is very important, right? You can't just talk to someone where you're just talking at them, right? You have to listen. What are they thinking? What are their concerns? What are they thinking about? What makes them scared or confused, right? And when you know that, then you can answer those questions and people appreciate that. Well, when you're giving a speech, you have to do that beforehand. You have to ask ahead of time, what are the concerns? What are these people? What are their challenges? What do they struggle with, right? What's the biggest thing that confuses them? You have to ask those questions ahead of time and listen to those answers so that you can give a speech that makes sense to those people. And the third thing is to start with the same thing that you end with. Or let me say it differently. You want to finish with the same thing that you started with. So if I started, like I did today, about talking about how important communication is and how huge of an impact it can make on your life, then when I finish my presentation, I should come back to that and say, do you see how this, and come back and have the same point at the end so that people are like, okay, it makes sense. It's almost like you're putting a ribbon on a present. Imagine it's Christmas time and you gift wrap a gift before you put it under the tree, but before you do that, you put a ribbon on top of it. Well, when you finish with the same thing that you started with, it's like it puts a ribbon around that gift, and so that it looks nice, it makes sense. You started with the same thing that you ended with. And I'm going to do that today and just say once again that you learning to speak better and to be a better communicator is something that can make your life better in a million different ways. And maybe if this is something you actually want to do exclusively and actually earn your living as a speaker, that's something that you can do too. I didn't know that this career was possible when I was your age, but I'm telling you now, however old you are, if you're 8 years old or 10 or 12 or 15, I'm telling you right now that this career is possible, and it's a great career. It's a super fun career, and you meet incredible people in incredible places. So keep doing it. Keep working on the craft that you're doing already today, because it's something that can follow you your whole life. And I'll stop there, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have. Thanks so much for listening so far.
Power 3, so SLR, structure, listen, and ribbon. I love that.
Yeah.
All right, I open the floor to students. Any questions we can ask Patrick, our guest speaker? Go ahead. You have your time to ask some inside tips.
Anyone have anything? If you're nervous, just try and just ask one.
All right, we have people. Oh, Jonathan, who asked you how much you get paid?
You want to know? I could answer.
Okay, go give a number. Don't scare them away.
So you're doing what I do. Listen, it takes a long time to get started. And it took me years to get started where I did not make good money at all. But once you're kind of a professional and your name gets known, most of the time your speech will pay $5,000. That's $5,000 or up. And kind of the more famous you are, or the better known you are, then the higher fee you'll get. So maybe you'll get $10,000 or $15,000. But it starts to be a professional speaker, to do this for a living. To give a speech, you usually get paid $5,000. Now, the mistake that people make is that they think, oh my gosh, you made $5,000 in 1 hour? That's incredible. But it's actually not true, because of course I have to prepare, which takes sometimes a week to prepare, and then I have to fly to the city, and I have to go to the hotel and check in, and I have to give the speech, and then I have to fly home again. So it actually takes a fair amount of time. But I would say once you're a professional, $5,000 or higher per speech is what most people get paid.
Wow. Okay. The other question I have is, for some people ask about where to travel. Can you tell me how many countries have traveled, Patrick?
Oh boy. Gosh, that's a great question. I don't know. Maybe 30 or 35. Not that many, but I have traveled. I've traveled all throughout Europe. Of course, here in North America, I've traveled to Canada and all over the United States, and then Mexico. But then I've also done a number of events in Europe and the Middle East. Like I've been to Dubai and Bahrain and all these places that we see on TV sometimes. And I've also had a chance to speak in Asia. In places like Bangkok and in Shanghai and China. I've never had a chance to speak in Hong Kong or Japan or South Korea. Those are 3 places I would love to go. I would love to go to South Korea, Seoul, South Korea, Tokyo, Japan, and Hong Kong. So one day, hopefully, I'll get hired to speak there. But I've had a chance to speak in the Philippines and New Zealand and Bangkok and India, which is an incredible place to go. So there's many places around the world, and this career allows you to go to some of those places and see some of those countries firsthand.
Wow. Great. Last question from Michael. What's your best speech ever, and what's your hardest speech ever?
Oh, that's a great question, Michael. I love the question.
When I mean my hardest speech, I mean by like the hardest to make, the most difficult to make.
Yeah. No, look, Michael, it's a great question. So let me tell you two. So I'll tell you the one that I enjoyed the most was a speech that I gave in Sacramento, California, and it was a room that had 400 self-employed people in the audience. And when you talk about someone who's self-employed, it means that they don't just get a paycheck every 2 weeks. Their income might fluctuate quite a bit. And my income fluctuates a lot too. So I understood them and they understood me. And it was a great event. But now the second one is, what was the hardest one? Michael, it's an excellent question. And it was actually just recently, it was just 3 or 4 months ago, I had to go to India, to a city called Hyderabad, India. And India is a very different part of the world, and it's very tech savvy, but the culture is very different. And there was 850 people there, and they were all engineers. So they were very smart people. And I had to speak about artificial intelligence, which is a very sophisticated topic. It's complicated. These things are very complicated. So I did a ton of research to try and put something together that would be new to them, because these people, they're engineers. They know a lot of this stuff already. So I had to do a lot of research to do that, and boy, was I nervous. It was fun with a room that big, 850 people. It was a big stage, and there were screens on both sides. It was really fun. So it was hard, but it was also fun.
Wow. All right. Thank you, Patrick. I really appreciate that, what you have. I'm going to give you a, what am I doing? Give you a virtual gift certificate. Can you see that?
Oh, really? Oh, wow. No, let me see it here. Look at that. Thank you very much.
All right.
Guys, thank you very much for being on the call. I do appreciate it.
Thank you, Patrick. We're so happy to have you, and you have a safe trip to South Carolina and Portland, and I'll see you somewhere in DC. Okay? Call us.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mike.
All right. Bye. Ciao.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You're a great speaker.
See?
What's your YouTube channel name?
They are going to evaluate your speech, Patrick.
What's your
Love
YouTube
it.
channel
Thank
name?
you, guys.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
YouTube channel